Welcome to the latest episode of the Forecasted Five. I'm your host, Seth Katz. Joining us today is Greg O'Connor. Greg serves as principal and managing partner with GCX, a licensed general contractor specializing in commercial construction based in Toluca Lake, California. Since the company's inception in 2018, it has grown to include more than 40 full-time professionals and serves Southern California. Greg's introduction to the industry came when he worked as a laborer on the Central Arizona project in the summer of 1985. Greg spent 22 years as a superintendent, becoming vice president at Howard Building Corporation, one of Los Angeles' largest tenant improvement contractors. Welcome, Greg, and we appreciate you being with us today.
Seth, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great. Let's get started with some questions. GCX was born with a vision to transform the construction industry by addressing its gaps and fostering a culture of collaboration, learning, and growth. Can you expand a bit on what separates GCX from other general contractors?
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, we wanted to leave the industry better than we found it, or that was part of our vision or part of my vision. And having been in this industry now for 38 years, it's pretty easy to find the little gaps and issues, and usually they're kind of minor. So this isn't like monumental change, but we're trying to change that through what I'll call user interface. We all carry around a smartphone, and if it falls in the water and we need a new one, within hours it's back up and running. It looks just like the one we had before and works the same way. A lot harder to do with people and personalities and the dynamics of our industry, but that's kind of what we're trying to do. I don't want to use the words DEI anymore, but it's interesting how if you include everyone in a process, the inclusion part of that really opens up a lot of people's minds, and we also try to encourage people who might be sitting on the sidelines that don't want to say something to say something, because oftentimes we're getting great ideas out of people who wouldn't normally speak up.
Excellent. When I was reading your introduction, I referred to the time you spent with the Central Arizona Project. For those who aren't familiar, the Central Arizona Project is a 336-mile system that supplies Colorado River water to the most populated regions in Arizona and delivers more tribal water than any other organization in the U.S. Would you be able to touch on the significance of this experience and how it contributed to your career success?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's making me go back a long time, but I got into this industry because I had a father who was a designer, and I had two uncles that were builders. One was a civil builder who got that contract to commission the Central Arizona Project. When they had built it, I think they constructed it in the 70s, and they couldn't get legislation passed that put the water in it. So once they got that legislation passed, he was the successful bidder on the commissioning contract. And I always kind of laugh. I feel like we were sentenced to that project. My brother and I were shipped out to the Arizona desert in the middle of 1985. And honestly, I cried myself to sleep for like the first 4 nights I was out there. It was just brutal conditions. And in the bottom of this canal that's shaped like this, it's kind of like the California aqueduct. And we took temperature readings down there, and occasionally it was in the 130s. But I think what it taught me was a ton of perseverance and seeing a project that big and kind of understanding. And some of this is retroactive comprehension of what we can actually do with big projects, big and small. And even a project that with that much scale still has detail and smaller things that really matters to communities, matters to commerce, etc. But I think if I got one thing out of that, it was sort of I'm going to say with resilience. We also learned later on in life that a couple of the foremen that we worked under bet that my brother and I would quit, and they had time frames for us quitting, and I think there was 5 days to 2 weeks, and we didn't know we had the option to quit. We thought we just had to do this. Dad said you're going to go work on the canal. We went and worked on the canal. So I think it really taught me perseverance and stick-to-itiveness.
Thanks for reflecting on the impact that experience had.
Thank you.
You worked on a number of projects since co-founding GCX. Is there one project in particular that stands out?
Yeah, we built the Netflix animation campus over in Burbank, and the contract value exceeded $100 million, and there's a lot of state-of-the-art equipment in there. I understand there's a dedicated fiber line that goes directly from Tokyo to Empire Center, so the animators can work at different time frames, almost real time on digital cells that they're working on. But I think what that was for somebody who started a business, like as an entrepreneur, it was like, it kind of felt like now we're legitimate. We have a real client and a real big project, which wasn't the first or last we've done, certainly, but that just felt very legitimizing. It was so wrought with issues, the boring stuff that affects contractors, residential adjacencies, limited work hours because of other tenants in the building. That was tough, but also this was kind of like in I'll call it the COVID emergence era. So we were still dealing with the effects of that. And we were building technology that was kind of new. We built something called an added dialogue room, or an ADR, which is basically a box inside of a box, and it basically floats in there. And it was just really fascinating to watch it all come together and to see the end user use it and get so much joy out of it, and to watch people repopulate an office space and love it. So it was very, very impactful, and something I'll probably never forget about for the rest of my career.
That's great. Since we have many Anderson students watching who are determined to operate their very own firm, are there some helpful pointers you'd be willing to share with those aspiring leaders?
Yeah, I love this question. My business partner, Jared, often jokes. He says, when he wants to write a book someday, and he says, I want to write a book on telling founders and entrepreneurs about the things they don't tell you. Everybody was behind us in starting this venture. We had a lot of very significant fast growth. From $0 in revenue in 2018 to close to $200 million in revenue in 2021. It was a pretty big jump for us. And yes, we had been part of firms that have done that in the past, but not inclusive of all the operational aspects, the HR aspects, and everything else. And I would just tell students or anybody who's looking to do this, just dig deeper, dig deeper, dig deeper. There's always something else that's lurking out there. And those are lessons we learned the hard way. They're also some of the best lessons, and I wish I had a playbook for those, Seth, but it's kind of like, just be really curious, know that things are not going to go according to plan, and plan for things not to go according to plan. And then ask every single professional surrounding your business what they see, whether it's a CPA or an attorney or a consultant of some sort. But it's there's just, I feel like there's so many things that they don't tell you.
Valuable advice. You're a strong advocate for incorporating technology into construction practices in order to be competitive. Can you share why that's so important today and will continue to be as we look ahead over the next decade?
Yeah, I'm sorry to giggle on this one, but the one word or the one phrase that's coming to mind right now is change management. Like, I'm a 56-year-old person that's been doing this now for 38 years, and so according to my kids, I'm a digital immigrant and not a digital native. And I think that I embrace technology pretty well until I see people who are half my age really grinding through it. But I think that there's always something that can improve time and give you some time back and make what we install at the end of the day more precise, whether it's document control or actual physical on-site installations, and embracing that and really kind of leading the charge on that and getting other people to embrace it is incredibly important. The resistance amongst our peers and amongst our industry it's like dragging a donkey uphill. They've got their back legs dug in and they just don't want to do it. But once it kind of takes off and gets some traction, it's really, really, really great. So, I'll tell you one little anecdotal story. I'll try to keep it quick. When I first started in this business, that we had something called a water level, and that people can look it up if they're curious. And it required 2 people to operate. It was accurate, but it was cumbersome, and it needed a lot of it needed 2 people. It's bottom line. Now we have lasers that are $250 that one person can buy that does 50 times what that thing does in less time. And a lot of people, when they first came out, the first lasers were huge and cumbersome and very expensive, and we're like, oh, these will never serve us. These will never take over. And now I would say 75% of tradespeople are carrying their own personal laser. So I wish I had more exciting stories to share, but that's my technological example that I can come up with.
And a really good one.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thanks so much for being with us today, Greg.
Thank you, Seth. I really appreciate the time and love supporting the Anderson Forecast.
Thank you. And thanks to all our viewers for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode of the Forecast in 5.